It's the 9th coup d'etat that West and Central African regions have witnessed in just 3 years. The military seized power in oil-rich Gabon on August the 30th.
For the people here have arrested me.
It put President Ali Bongo Ondimba under house arrest, only hours after he was declared the winner in an election that would have extended the Bongo family's 56-year rule. General Brice Oligui Nguema, head of the Republican Guard and a cousin of the ousted president, led that coup. The military leader was sworn in as head of state in less than a week. 3 days later, he appointed a former opposition leader, Raymond Ndong Sima, as the Prime Minister of his transitional government. I'm James Bays at the United Nations. Last week, the newly appointed Prime Minister travelled here to New York to address the UN General Assembly. Is the transitional government regime change for real? Or was the coup a family crisis transferring power from one part of the same elite to another? We put those questions to Raymond Ndong Sima, the transitional Prime Minister of Gabon, talks to Al Jazeera. Raymond Ndong Sima, the Prime Minister of the transitional government of Gabon, thank you for joining us here on Al Jazeera. First, explain to me, why was it necessary to have a coup in Gabon?
It was necessary because elections were not well prepared and the results that were given were not in conformity with what the reality was. If the army didn't step in, we would have riots and disturbances in the country.
Your country got independence from France back in 1960. 7 years later, Omar Bongo became the president. He ruled for 41 years. And when he died in 2009, his son Ali Bongo took over. So the family had run the country for 56 years. That's my entire life. Had Gabon become a family business?
Yes, that was somewhat what the reality was. If somebody is in power that long, he becomes entrenched in the political system, in the economic system, and it becomes a family business.
Now, the coup took place on the 30th of August, just before dawn. It seems to have had support from all of the military, and they very quickly seized total control. It was led by the head of the Republican Guard, Brigadier General Brice Oligui Nguema, who was swiftly installed as the president, and a week later he made you the interim Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of the transitional government. Were you in on the coup? Did you know it was going to happen?
No, we absolutely didn't know that it was going to happen.
Did you have any hesitation about taking the job as Prime Minister of this transitional government, knowing that it was as a result of a coup?
Yes, I hesitated for other reasons. First reason was, at the start, that those involved in the government would not be candidates for future elections. I had to make a decision to renounce of being a candidate if I accepted. At the same time, not accepting would have been conceived as that me and the other people in the oppositions were not engaged or committed to making the reforms that were necessary. And at some point you have to make a choice. I made a choice between my own personal interest and the interest of the countries. Then many of us anticipated that we would make a determination on the reforms during the national debate.
Since you've taken this job, you must have spoken many times to the coup leader, who is now the president. Did he tell you when he planned this coup, what preparations he made for the coup, and why he acted when he did?
I think that the military reminded what happened in 2016 when the results were given. There were protests, a lot of contests, and the army was obliged to repress the population that were demonstrating in 2016. there were casualties and material damage in the country. And this time around, they came to the realization that if this time the result would have been the same, we would have faced the same situation with more dire consequences. And then they did not accept that they would step by and follow the same orders as in 2016.
Did he, though, express to you in your conversations with him any misgivings? Because, of course, his job was the head of the Republican Guard. The job was to protect the regime, and he ended up as the man who overthrew the regime.
But the president of the transition has expressed himself on this subject. It's not a secret. They have him and the other forces, chiefs, that what was happening was not reasonable. They hesitated, but they had to make a decision. The decision was a choice between the results as they were being planned and the ensuing violence, or to take a responsible decision to avoid what was looming. And the way they organize it, I don't know, but I know that they talk amongst them.
Now, if we go back to the election and the result came out just hours before the coup took place, the official results showed that Ali Bongo won with 64.2% of the vote. If the military felt it was fraudulent, why not just put the second place candidate in power?
Because it wasn't the military that were responsible for giving the results. It was the Electoral Council that were responsible for the results. So the military had to leave the Electoral Council give the results. They had to wait until the council would give the results. And when the results were given, the consequences of the results is what the military did not want to see happen. They knew that after the results, when the population would wake up, they would have said, we're not happy with the results, and take it to the streets. And they would have received orders to the effect of repressing the population. And the repression mechanism would have been put in place, and the military wouldn't have accepted that. And if the military had stepped in before the results were given, it would have been conceived as if they had an agenda and that they wanted to place somebody else.
Let me clarify the status of the former President Ali Bongo. My understanding is he was initially placed under house arrest, but he's since been released, and the government has said he can go abroad if he wants for medical treatment. Why have you decided to release him? Why are you not potentially pressing charges against him?
You're asking a question that is the responsibility of the Committee on Transition and the Restoration of Institutions. The military, as you see, avoided to shoot at the population. And we had a process without any bloodshed. And the military want to maintain a peaceful environment, and it wasn't reasonable to start by pressing charges and arresting people, keeping them in jails. And if that had been done, probably some followers of Mr. Bongo would have taken to the street and say, we're going to start fighting.
But in your view, is he actually guilty of mismanagement and corruption during his long rule?
It's not to me to answer. Investigations and inquiries would determine what happened. If money had been embezzled or smuggled, and then we will see what the responsibility of those involved would be. You realize that in the hours following the coup, lots of money was found in residences, in houses across the city. We have to find out where that money came from, how that money found itself in these houses and residences.
Yeah, you talk about money, and it was money in suitcases, I understand. You say there needs to be potentially investigation. Already there's been investigations over the years by France. They've conducted a series of investigations, one of which was dropped in 2017, but before it was dropped, it revealed 39 properties owned by the Bongo family in France and 9 luxury cars. This is your country's money, is it not? He's been stealing your country's money.
On parle l'argent des biens mal acquis.
We're now talking about ill-acquired assets. The logic is that it's vast amounts of money that were embezzled from the country and led a certain number of people to acquire assets in France and elsewhere. I have an opinion on this question, and I think that there will be a time where I can speak.
What about the rest of the Bongo family? Ali Bongo's son, Noureddin, had a very senior position. And as you know, the Bongo family is very large because Omar Bongo, who was the president before, had 54 children, I believe. France is charged 9 of them currently with financial crimes. Are they going to be loyal to your transitional government? Are you not worried that there could be some sort of counter-coup? As we've already said, the Bongo family had ruled this country for 56 years.
Je pense que dans une famille, et vous dites 56 personnes, il y a forcément des gens.
I think that in a family of 56, there are people who think that what's not right should be exposed. I think one of the daughters has expressed herself and saying that the committee intervention was the right thing to do. Among these children, there are some of them who weren't really happy or accepted what was happening. It doesn't mean that if you are a son of Bongo or daughter of Bongo that you accepted the bad governance that was happening. It's the investigation that would show that there weren't unanimity within the family.
Now, the general who launched the coup, General Nguema, he was also a cousin of Ali Bongo, I understand. He himself launched in 2019 something called the Clean Hands Operation to get rid of corruption. But you're probably aware of this. There's a group in the US, an anti-corruption group, the OCCRP, that alleges he spent $1 million on 3 properties in the US in 2018, and he purchased them in cash without a mortgage. So is the man you serve, the new transitional president, is he clean or is he corrupt?
I don't know. I can't answer these questions. If there are information that were obtained by certain people, they have to put this information on the table.
Let's talk about your country's economy. You are an economist. That is your background. It must be evident to you that there's something wrong in a country with 2.3 million people that's an OPEC member, that has the 4th highest GDP per head in sub-Saharan Africa, and yet a third of the population lives in extreme poverty.
Oui. Bon, je voudrais rappeler que la notion de PIB, je la conteste formellement.
Yes, I want to remind that. The notion of gross national income, I oppose this notion. That income is the sum of the value of national enterprises. Foreign investment makes it that the benefits of these companies, these investments, becomes a foreign income. And who produces the benefits that we're talking about?
Ce sont ces entreprises qui s'approprient le bénéfice et non pas les Gabonais.
It's not the Gabonese, but these foreign companies that invest in country and reap the benefits of their investment.
Mais personne ne veut plus parler du produit national brut parce que ça dérange les gens d'aller au produit national brut.
Yes.
Parce que ça permet de voir qu'en réalité,
Because
dans la part
in
de la
reality,
valeur ajoutée produite,
the share of the Gabonese people is not what is
mais tout le monde parle du PIB
the reality,
parce que
because the national income is an aggregate that is easy to use to compare, but the reality is different.
sur la notion des investissements directs et donc sur la propriété du capital.
So how do you change things to deal with the poverty and unemployment you have in your country?
Je pense que pour changer les choses, d'abord, il faut
I think to change the situation, we have to invest money,
on ne peut pas prendre l'argent
significant money, in collective infrastructure.
comme ça à la population.
We can't just take money and to distribute it amongst the population.
Son intérêt est de créer les infrastructures
The
collectives.
interest of the state is to create infrastructure so as to improve the conditions for the whole country in water, energy, and other collective services, public
Revenu
services.
individuel des gens, il faut créer de l'emploi.
And if you want to improve individual revenue, you have to create
Se
employment.
prévaloir d'un revenu en fin de mois.
One area where the government of Ali Bongo was praised was by environmentalists and protecting the rainforest. 85% of the landmass of Gabon, I understand, is jungle. Do you pledge to continue that commitment?
Oui, bien sûr. C'était un bon engagement. Tout n'a pas été mauvais. Je crois
Yes,
que
of course.
la notion de
It was a good commitment. I think
est une question qui
that to preserve environment
concerne l'humanité tout entière.
and climate,
Si on peut garder
it's a question that's important for the entire humanity, not Gabon only. If we could contribute to
ces politiques-là,
spaces or policies that would help protect the environment and the climate,
dans cette question, c'est seulement
but
que la population ne
the problem is that the population doesn't see the link between its commitment efforts and
qu'on arrive à établir un
the benefits of these efforts. That's a problem.
dans la mesure où
It's a very asymmetrical proposal that you ask countries to make these efforts
à la jouissance
and they don't see any revenue, any income, any benefit flowing from these efforts.
pour quel but? Qu'est-ce qu'on a en face?
Let's talk about the region, because the coup in Gabon was just the latest one in West Africa. There were coups in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Yet, if you look back a few years, there were no coups anywhere on the continent of Africa between 2008 and 2017. I wonder what you think is going on, and I wonder also why all the coups seem to be in French-speaking countries, former colonies of France. Is that a coincidence?
Oh, je ne sais pas exactement pourquoi ça se passe seulement.
I don't know why exactly these situations are in former French
Nous
colonies.
sommes différents de ce qui se passe au Mali.
In Gabon, it's a different situation from what's happening in Mali or in Niger.
Il ne faut pas qu'il y ait un amalgame sur cette question.
We don't want to see a whole
Terroriste immédiatement.
amalgamated interpretation of what happened in Gabon.
Niger, ils sont confrontés
In these countries, they are facing an increasing pressure from terrorism,
par conséquent,
and also there's a certain wariness
alors que les
of these countries where they don't see performance of the international community actions.
France still maintains a military base in Gabon. Are they still welcome under the new transitional government?
nous n'avons pas posé la question en termes de relations avec les uns et les autres.
We didn't state our position in terms of our relations between given partners.
Cette question viendra au débat.
If that question comes when we have a national debate, we will then tackle that question then. We have first to resolve our own domestic problems before we start talking about our relations with our international partners.
Avec le reste du monde.
Normally, when there's a coup somewhere in the world, One of the first places it's discussed is among diplomats at the UN Security Council. But of course, in this case, Gabon currently serves on the UN Security Council. It's one of the 15 members. Did this make the last few weeks more awkward, or is it making it easier for the new transitional government, do you think?
I think people are asking questions. When they talk about coup, there are a number of decisions that are announced here and there, and they consider the change is not in accordance with the standards and the principles. But what else could we have done? So, at the Security Council, people might ask questions, but all we do is to explain why the change happened and what we want to do in the future. And the reason was to avoid chaos, bloodshed, and that's a situation. We always ask what would have been the best situation or the best option.
After the coup, Gabon was suspended by the African Union, by the regional group ECAS, and partially suspended by the Commonwealth. And yet, I'm somewhat surprised you were able to travel here just a few weeks after the coup to the UN General Assembly. Tell me, how easy was it to get the visas and permission to come to New York as a new government?
Mais il y a d'autres pays avant nous qui ont eu des coups et dont les représentants sont venus.
Well, other countries where coup happened with representatives came to New York.
Well, ask the government of Myanmar. They're still waiting to come to New York and they're not allowed to come.
I can't answer. I don't know what happened in Myanmar.
Okay, well, let me get back to democracy in Gabon. Let's be very clear what your pledge is. When will there be democracy again in your country? When will there be elections? What date?
Ce que le président de la transition a indiqué.
What the president of the transition indicated, it's not him that would set the date of the end of the transition. He asked for everybody to be in national debate to discuss the problems and the solutions and how to go about and hold proper elections.
But what's the timeline for those elections? I mean, you can't have a debate that goes on 5-10 years, can you?
Il ne faut pas non plus escamoter le débat. Il faut pas escamoter.
We don't want to just rush into what we want to do. We want to make it right, and we think that 24 months is an appropriate average given what we have to do.
And just to be clear, will you or the transitional president, will you be candidates in any election in 2025?
À ce stade, la charte dit que je ne peux pas être candidat.
At this stage, the charter says I can't be a candidate. So, if there are other changes, but as of now, the charter doesn't allow me to be a candidate in the next elections.
Okay, we're about to finish, but I just want to clear up one thing because I've seen this assessment and I want your views on it. You previously served as Gabon's Prime Minister from 2012 to 2014, and then you joined the opposition. The transitional president, he's a relative of the former President Ali Bongo. Some people are saying that this wasn't really a popular coup, it was a palace coup. It's the same elite running the country, just with a different man on top. What do you say to that?
C'est l'histoire qui nous dira ce qu'il en était exactement. Parce que
history would tell what it is really. We could speculate, we could hold that position, but history will tell. What is certain is that if the military hadn't stepped in, we would have had a different situation. Is it what people would have preferred around the world? When the military stepped in, I wrote a paper and stating that this was a better solution. But we couldn't have just call on our partners and our followers to say, we're not accepting, let's take it to the streets. And if we had done so, and it was a recipe for sending our partisans to the street facing the military, who would have then repressed.
Raymond Ndong Sima, Prime Minister of the Transitional Government of Gabon, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
Merci bien, merci.